Well, we're here once again out on the edge of Burial Hill, coming to the end of our 2019 excavation season, and we've spent the past few weeks kind of working our way back into a structure that we had first identified here. Now 2 years ago, we identified the first components of this building, and we spent the last 4 weeks trying to actually expand out in multiple different directions to try and work out from a cellar of the building to try and find some of the building dimensions. And over the course of those weeks, we've really come a long way in our understanding and interpretation of what we found here. So we're quite confident now about some aspects of this building. Still a lot of questions remaining, but we've got at least a 2-bay building with a front part of the building extending to the south. And immediately behind me is kind of what we've been kind of describing and thinking of as the back bay of the building. The back bay has a deep cut that was made for a cellar, or perhaps even we think maybe a kind of a building that was dug into the bank. So a very early construction, dug into the bank to make kind of a very kind of expedient and quick building. Based on our understanding of the past topography, which was very different in this area, that building probably fronted with an actual wall rather than an embankment. So embankment on the north and the west walls, and then walls on the other regular walls constructed on the other side. We think that was the earliest section of the building that later had an addition put on based on artifacts that we have found in the builder's trench. So the early parts of the building, when it's constructed, there are not any artifacts yet broken or present on the surface to get buried into parts of the construction. And then later parts of the building, when they've been living here for a while, there's some broken material that can get incorporated into parts of the construction. So we can kind of sequence out parts of the building by looking for what kind of artifacts are present, whether there are any in parts of the construction. And the bay that kind of extends out to the south here, where these people are working on the cellar floor, that bay of the building, there are artifacts in some of the construction areas for the building. So our interpretation is that that's a slightly later part of the structure. Maybe an addition added on after the back bay had already been built. This building also was made with a daub construction to parts of the walls. And that's taking very fine clay and other materials and using it essentially like a plaster to plaster over. You could do that on a wooden lath wall, or what's called a wattle and daub construction, where you're taking small branches and putting those between posts and covering them with daub to make a wattle and daub wall. But you could also apply this material to rocks, and in one instance it looks like they actually took part of the sand embankment and covered it with daub to make a daub wall base at the edge of the cellar. In our excavations this year, we're really hoping that that is going to firm up into a chimney base, but or hearth base really, we're still working on that area of the excavation. Our artifacts this year have been pretty consistent and helped put us into very solidly the early part of the 17th century. So we continue to find English borderware, a ceramic that was really popular in the mid-17th century in London. Very distinctive whitish colored paste with green and yellow glazes. We've been finding examples of some kind of utilitarian vessels, some big pieces of milk pans and redware pottery that would have been used for food preparation and storage. A lot of that has been clustered in an area that we're thinking is a potential hearth. So there's kind of a cluster of these food-related artifacts on the floor of the building in the area that we would like to kind of make into a fluid preparation and storage area. We recovered an English farthing, which is datable. So that's a small English coin that was struck between 1613 and 1642. So very consistent with our artifacts, putting us somewhere in the period between 1620 and 1650. So we're in parts of the original settlement, on top of one of the buildings that existed in that original settlement, and working to try and really interpret the size, the shape, the structure, and layout of the building.